right, good evening, everybody. My name is Kris, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is June 18th, 2008, and I'm forever grateful for that. I have a sponsor. I sponsor other men. I have a home group. It's the Monday night speaker meeting in St. Petersburg, Florida. It's a speaker meeting, and it meets on Monday nights, as the name suggests. And I'd like to thank Jennifer for asking me to speak. And it's an honor to get to do this or anything for Alcoholics Anonymous, and especially this group. This is a wonderful group. I love coming up here, and it reminds me a lot of my home group. Just the energy and just lots of wonderful people here, lots of great sobriety, and happy Valentine's Day. And there's nowhere I'd rather be this evening for Valentine's Day than here. So I'm glad to be here. And I shared about, I said my home group is Monday night speaker meeting, meets on a Monday night speaker meeting, and my sponsor, Roger, before he passed away, would always say that, and everybody would laugh, and then he'd say, I say that because where he got sober in Louisville, Kentucky, the Tuesday night step group met on Saturday mornings. And but one time, I remember asking him, I was like, oh, by the way, you just made that up, right? Because I got sober in Louisville, too, although I wasn't there a long time before I moved down here. I said, you just made that up, right? Like, just for a joke? And he said, oh, hell no. He goes, remember, Roger, how you say that? He goes, that's real. He's like, as alcoholics, man, we don't want to change nothing. Which is a double negative, by the way. But I mentioned that too because, and it's funny because that could be true, right? But really, in reality, and we all experience this, and we have to if we're going to stay sober. AA is all about change. I'm different than I was when I came in here, and through God's grace in this program and everything it has available, I'm different than I was, a year ago. And I remember Roger would always talk about, he'd say that too. He'd say, each year, like sobriety is like a, new level, we can go to. And it doesn't always feel that way, but looking back, again, as long as I stay active here and do, what I'm supposed to be doing, there's always growth, which is a beautiful thing. And not always, enjoyable in the moment, but I've learned to, embrace it. There's been some mention tonight of congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles, that's cool. I'm a huge football fan. I'm a huge Cleveland Browns fan, and if anybody watches football, I used to go to another fellowship for that reason. They cause a lot of pain and heartache, and it's very similar to the relationship with alcoholism. It's like, I love this thing for my team. It's going to be different this time. And then you get some reasons for hope. I had 3 or 4 beers and I went home. Everything was fine. And then the next time it's a huge blowout. And it's just the same old story, man. It just causes pain and suffering. But it's going to be different next time. The draft's coming up and it's going to be different. I also share that too because I can remember, at my bottom pretty much, I was living back home with mom and dad, and I just didn't, just untreated alcoholism, not wanting to live, waking up every morning, upset I woke up, and not having no idea what's wrong, and no alcoholism in my family. My parents don't know what's wrong with me, and all those the adjectives in the big book and the expressions, the jumping off point, all of that, I related to all that when I first got here. And I mentioned that too about in regards to sports. I can remember being in my room and in all seriousness, being a Browns fan, it was something I grew up doing, being from Northeast Ohio, and it was a thing I did with my dad. We had season tickets. And then all the the positive male influences in my life growing up. We were all Browns fans, and it's what you did, and you went to the games, you watched, football, and so, that's how I got into it. And I can remember being at my bottom, being back at home, and being in my room, and my mom coming in the room and saying, "Hey, the Browns are on. Dad's watching the Browns." And I remember thinking, so what? Like, I don't care about anything, let alone football. And that just kind of was representation of where I was at. I just had lost the will, to live, really, which was, my untreated alcoholism, really at my bottom. So, since I've been sober, it's a fun thing to have stuff you care about, and especially sports teams, and it's interesting to, look at the psychology behind that. It's just fun to be a part of a community, part of a tribe. I have friends that we bonded over, the love for our sports teams, and being sober today, of the many blessings, it's just, all things, big and little. It's neat to have stuff you care about and that you love and that you enjoy, even if it causes you heartache, like the Browns. So, but what it was like, what happened, what it's like today. And I mentioned I'm from Northeast Ohio, grew up there. Great place to grow up. I'm from a small town called Hubbard, and it's right outside Youngstown, Ohio, which isn't far from Akron, Ohio. I grew up, Akron's about 30, 40 minutes away. And so when I first got sober, hearing about AA got started in Akron, I just kind of personal thing, I thought that was kind of neat. And because Akron's not, really a really known city. But I had a really good family. I still do. Both my parents are still alive, and they've been married 55 years now. My dad worked 9 to 5. My mom's a stay-at-home mom. I have one older sister. And grandparents on both sides. They were all in my life. Aunts, uncles, no alcoholics. And no alcoholism in my family. And so, I just grew up. That's how I grew up. The neighborhood I grew up in, suburban neighborhood, a bunch of families with kids around me and my sister's age. I grew up playing in the streets, and you come inside when the lights come on, or the street lights come on, and I just had a good, normal, happy childhood. And I also mention that because on paper, if you were to look at my life, there's no, reason for me to be an alcoholic, which there doesn't need to be, as we learn when we come in here. And, it's just, I'm an alcoholic. I believe I was born with this thing. And I'm glad I don't debate that in my head today. My brother-in-law, who's, married to my sister, Matt, he's a great guy. And he's, he's just a good father and well-adjusted to life. And as I got to know him over the years, he would just share stories about, his life growing up. And he had a really rough childhood. His dad wasn't around. There was suicide in his family, and he was in trouble all the time. And I remember when I moved down here to Tampa, I remember him telling me, he goes, "Oh, you're near Clearwater." I said, "Yeah." He goes, when I was in high school, me and my buddies skipped school and hitchhiked down to Clearwater. And I was like, "Wait, what?" They live in Cleveland. I was like, "You hitchhiked?" I was like, "What'd you guys do?" And he said, "We just drank and eventually got picked up by the cops, and our parents had to come down and get us." and that's just, how his life was. And he told me another time, he's like, I was drinking vodka straight from the bottle. And I just said to myself, I can't do this anymore. And he just stopped, and so Matt, obviously, apparently, not alcoholic, but I am. And I know what my problem is today, and I'm super grateful for that, because for a long time I didn't know what the problem is. And alcohol affects me differently than it apparently affects him. And I was laid out in the doctor's opinion in the big book, the obsession of the mind coupled with the allergy of the body. And I cannot safely drink alcohol in any form, as the big book says. And again, I'm super grateful for that, because I know what the problem is. So we know what to do about it. So, growing up, I can remember I couldn't wait to be older. And I remember, my friends, when they were older brothers that used to hang with us, when they got a little bit older, they stopped hanging out with us. And I can remember watching them get their driver's license and going to prom. And I remember thinking, man, I can't wait to get to do that. I just wanted to be older. I associated being older with you get a little bit of money, you get a driver's license, you get to date girls, and you get to drink. And I don't know where I picked that up from, but I just couldn't wait to get out and do that. And so when I got into high school, man, the most important thing to me was just to be cool. I just wanted to be perceived as cool. That was like life or death to me. And no matter which group I hung with, I would act the way I thought you felt I should act. So if I was with this group, I acted a certain way. If I was with this group, I acted a certain way. And I don't know if that's any different than any adolescent kid. Probably. When I first came into AA, I related to the isms, the feelings, the thinking, the things we do. Anyway, it was just so important that I fit in. And if alcohol was around, which it would come up at parties and all that, I would try to drink because I wanted to fit in and I really wanted to try it. And a weird thing happened is I couldn't drink. Meaning I would try to, but I just couldn't do it. And it wasn't for lack of effort. Just, one beer tasted so bad and thick and gross to me that I couldn't finish a beer. And I tried on several occasions and just couldn't do it. So, I don't know, I kind of left it alone or didn't think much about it. And then that all changed, the first time I got drunk and the first time I felt the effects produced by alcohol. I was, it was this day actually, back in, it's kind of neat. Back in 1997, it was Valentine's Day weekend. And I went to visit my sister who's 4 years older than me. She went to Ohio University. Football fans, that's where Joe Burrow's from. That's not where he played. Athens, Ohio. And Ohio University had this event called Little Siblings Weekend. And I remember my sister asked me if I wanted to come to it. And I said, Little Siblings Weekend. I said, that sounds really, really lame. And so I turned it down. And then a friend of mine went, and she said it was a lot of fun. And she went to all these college parties. So when it came around the next year, this was February of 97, I signed up to go. And I didn't know what the point of it was. I still never found out. I never put too much thought into it. But I don't know I guess it was to promote the school for the other family members because it's a private university. But I didn't know what to expect. I'm like, do I hang out with other little siblings? What do we do when we get there? And so I got there. I took a bus there. My sister met me at the bus stop, and she was in a sorority at the time. So I was staying at the sorority house. So I was like, okay, this is kind of cool already. It was a Friday night, and I'm like, what do we do? And she's like, well, we're gonna go to this party. And so we went to this party. I don't remember starting to drink, but I'm sure I felt awkward or uncomfortable being around all these college kids. And but man, I remember when I felt the effects produced by alcohol for the first time. And like I said, I had tried to drink before this unsuccessfully. Because alcohol, I grew up with it being a very normal thing. Just what it's meant for, I guess. My dad or people would give me sips of alcohol, I can remember as a kid. So I don't remember the first time I tasted it, but I remember the first time I felt the effects. And we were leaving one party and we were going to another one. And I said to my sister, I said, hey, Kel, I think I'm drunk. And she rolled her eyes and was like, oh, okay. And I was 16 going on, I turned 7, my belly button birthday is May 2nd. So I was, 16, about to be 17. And man, I remember thinking, man, so this is what everybody's been talking about. This is freaking amazing. And, got really drunk that night, had a great time, and woke up the next morning and I was really sick and just hung over and throwing up and dry heaving. And I just felt awful. And my hangover lasted the whole day. And about 4 o'clock that afternoon, I went up to my sister again. I said, hey, Kel, I think I need to go to the hospital because I don't know what's wrong with me. And she rolled her eyes again. She's like, you're just drunk, or you're just hungover. You're fine. And I remember thinking, that's kind of cool. I've never been hungover before. Okay. I remember I took a nap and got up and felt a little bit better. I was already figuring out these hangover cures, and I still felt kind of queasy. But it's Saturday night now, and I remember getting ready to go out, and I remember thinking and asking myself, are you going to drink again? And I thought, absolutely. And so that's what I did. So Saturday night, Man, Saturday night, same thing. Got really, really drunk. Saturday night was even better than Friday night. So on Saturday night, I find myself in the driveway of this other house party, and I'm making out with my sister's friend named Deborah. I'm 16, she's 21. Alcohol made that possible. And, because man, I didn't get any, it used to, the girls could date the older guys, but, no older women were paying attention to me. And I remember, she kind of like, I don't know, came to or whatever and pushed me off. She goes, "Oh my gosh, you're Kelly's little brother." And I remember I went back in the house and I had lipstick smeared across my face, and all these college guys were like, "Yeah, little pavone," and like high-fiving me. I was like, "Dude, this is the greatest weekend of my life. Like, I am going to come here." And like two sides to every story too, I like that just added to it. Like, holy, oh my gosh, like getting to make out with Deborah, she's 21. I remember like later on my sister telling me, like, she's like, "Deborah doesn't know I know, and I'm gonna leave it that way." And she was like mortified. Sunday morning rolls around, getting a little bit better already at it. Just did not throw up, but was hungover, felt very queasy. But I made it home, and I remember thinking, like, just don't throw up on the bus, and I did not. And so, man, alcohol had entered my life, and I wasn't aware of that at the time. But that's what had happened. And I heard it said, a hard drinker or non-alcoholic might say, that was a lot of fun last night, whereas an alcoholic, it's like, wow, that was life-changing. And again, I didn't think that consciously, but that's what happened. And it just, and I was never, we hear it a lot here in AA. I always felt less than, and I was either above you or less than. I heard a speaker say that once, and I always judged myself, in relation to how I thought you felt, and so I was kind of having a good time anyway in life, but this is like, okay, this is like the real deal now that I've discovered this. And so then I figured it out. I learned how to drink, and I never did end up liking the taste of beer. But I knew though, if you just if you set your mind to it, you just persevere. You get through those first 3 or 4 beers, and that buzz kicks in, and then, man, we're ready to go. And that's how I always drank. I didn't think there was any other reason to drink. I always drank to get drunk. I never understood having a few beers after work or anything like that. And then the other thing too, around this time, like I said, alcoholism wasn't a problem in my family. So when I got a little bit older, 18, 19, like still underage, if I was at a family event, like a wedding or something like that, like it really wasn't a big deal if I drank. It wasn't encouraged, but it was like, okay. And then so, always drank to get drunk. That was always the goal. And then around this time too, I noticed my dad drinking his beer on Saturdays. He still does this on Saturday. And I would notice him never drunk. And so I asked him one time, I said, "Hey Dad, when you drink, how many beers do you have?" And he goes, because I have about 3 or 4, and I start to feel it, and then I stop. And even then I remember thinking, like, yeah, but why would you do that? And I remember dismissing it. I'm like, well, that's just my dad. He's different, and come to find out, alcohol affects him differently than it affects me. So, things rolled along, graduated from high school, and, then I remember at one point discovering hard liquor, and I remember being at a bar one night and doing a double shot of Crown Royal. I still remember it. And, like, I was nursing a beer, and, like, that buzz kicked in, like, way quicker. And I remember thinking, like, oh, man, this is the way to do it. Drink, like, I was into whatever gets me there the quickest, the fastest. My favorite speaker, Norm Alpe, used to say, "I want to get downtown." And I don't want to get there in a little bit. I want to get there right now. That's how I drank. No consequences really early on. Didn't see anything wrong with it. Especially in college, just, that's, from my perception anyway, that's just what we did. We go to parties, we drink, and I was able to show up for life, graduate from college. My disease had not really progressed at that point, really. So it was a lot of fun. Also, at this point in my life, one of the things that I feel fortunate looking back. So I just knew what I wanted to do. When I was 12 years old, I was a huge wrestling fan, pro wrestling. I used to watch WWF wrestling, and I was just like, man, that's what I want to do. when I was 18, I was like, that's what I want to do. And so my parents saw I was serious about this, so they made me a deal. They said, just finish. You got to stay in school, and we'll be supportive of this. And so that's what I did. And went to Youngstown State University, and I started looking for a pro wrestling school that would train me, that where I could do that and still show up to college and still work the job that I worked. And I did that. I found a place that met on the weekends, and it was in Louisville, Kentucky. And the only problem with that was Louisville was a 6-hour car ride, so it was a 12-hour round trip thing. But and this is why I always mention that. I just, in my opinion, is as alcoholics, man, we're really determined people. Like when you look at like Bill Wilson's, a lot of the stuff Bill Wilson did, like he just glosses over it in Bill's story when him and Lois with the motorcycle and sidecar and went up and down the East Coast and sent all those reports back to Wall Street, and that's took a lot of determination and we see it all over in the rooms, right? Especially when we're out there looking for what we need. I can remember like being in a dry county. You ever been in a dry county traveling? And you find out how to get to the next county to get what you need, and we're going to get it done. And that's a good, positive, thing to use for the right stuff, in my opinion. And that's how I approach wrestling. It was every weekend. It was 12 hours round trip, but I loved it. And I'd even stop at Ohio State University and party with my friends and wake up early the next morning and go down to Louisville and train. And I graduated from college and kept wrestling and training for that. And ended up paying off. I got a contract with the WWE, the company I grew up watching, and man, that was I had arrived. And that's a great feeling, when you have a goal and you work hard for it. I mean, we've all done it, you sacrifice for it, and big and small things, and you get the payoff. And so at this point in my life, I'm working for the company that I've always grew up watching, that I always wanted to do that. And it's just it's fun. It's so much fun, and things look really good on the outside. But at this point in my life, in a short amount of time, 3 or 4 years, man, my alcoholism really progressed. So by the time I started training when I was 20, by the time I was 24, it was pretty much daily. By the time I was 25, I was just out of control, and it's all the time now. I got to put something in me. I can't drink all the time, but okay, I'm an athlete, so I got to take all these pills, because and all the BS and the rationalization, the things we tell ourselves. So it's to the point where it's every day I got to put something in me to change the way I feel, and I get those moments of clarity. I remember my girlfriend at the time asking me, she's like, why do you get messed up all the time? Like, what are you running from? And I remember getting mad because I didn't have an answer, for that. And then, again, I think of Norm Alpe, and he said, the gears of alcoholism grind very slow but very fine. Give it enough time, it's going to take away everything. And I was already kind of starting to lose relationships and having these consequences that we have. But like my pro wrestling career always protected me, because I could always point to that and say, look how good I'm doing. It was my self-worth. It gave me job, security. That's how I made my living. And until, of course, I lost that from drinking. And that was, so what had happened that weekend, it was St. Patrick's Day weekend in 2006, and I nearly died, is what happened. Norm would also talk about seconds and inches. Alcoholism is a game of seconds and inches. Few seconds, few inches, one way or the other, and wouldn't be here. And I was out one night, went back to my buddy's apartment. I was staying with him, and I passed out, and I was out on the couch, and everybody else was sleeping that was there. And a buddy that was out with us the night before decided to get up early the next morning to go to the gym, and had to use the guy's car where I was staying. Something didn't work with his car. I forget the exact details, but anyway, he found me unresponsive. And they rushed me to the hospital, and, man, for a lot of years, I just kind of glanced over that. But, that's seconds and inches right there. So they got me to the hospital, and I ended up being okay. But I was intubated for half the day, and I woke up that way. And when you wake up in the hospital and you don't know how you got there, it's a very strange feeling. And it was explaining to me what had happened. And, as far as I knew, I was fine. But the other thing, man, I started to think, my keen alcoholic thinking, WWE just implemented this thing called the wellness policy because for a lot of years it was kind of a frat house environment, and that they're a publicly traded company now, so they're really wanting to clean up their image. There were some premature deaths with some wrestlers and things like that. So they implemented this thing called the wellness policy, where basically they were cracking down on all this stuff. So I'm in the hospital for partying, is what it was, and nearly killed myself from that. And so I started thinking, oh man, this might not look good to the company. And it just went into effect. So, that line, there is a solution. It says the alcoholic has a positive genius for getting tight at precisely the wrong time. And so I was fired for that instance. And they told me, they said, you got to go away and you can't be here. And they viewed me as a liability, so then from there, I just really hit my bottom because that was like the thing I was kind of holding on to was my career. Now that was gone. So now I have nothing to do but just drink over it. I have no coping skills. I can't look at myself. I'm incapable of it. I just got with the people that said, man, that's BS, dude. You had one bad night. Other people do that, and they didn't get fired. And it was really, at the time, what I thought in my self-centered world, the worst thing that could possibly happen. Not thinking anything about how that affected my family or my friends, and all that. And so my career there is done. And so I just drink. That's my solution. Ran out of money and all that. And that's when I ended up back at home living with my parents. And for a big shot like me, that's the worst thing that could happen. Instead of being grateful, I had some place to go. And that's when I didn't even want to watch Cleveland Browns football, being at my bottom there. And if you had asked me what the problem was, I would have said, I lost my job and I worked really hard to get there, and now it's gone, and it just wasn't fair. And if a follow-up question was, when did this happen? I would have said a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. And I couldn't get past that when really what it was just my alcoholism, So then, finally, I was back in Louisville, and I was going to try to clean myself up and get it together. We're gonna fix it, right? We all know that. I'm gonna fix this thing, and that's the baffling part of because most other stuff, I was 26. No, I'm sorry, I was 28 by this point. And most things in my life I've been able to accomplish when I set my mind to it and work at it. But I can't figure this out. And I don't know what my problem is. So finally, I went into a walk-in clinic one day, and I just got honest with this doctor. And I shared how I was living, everything I was doing. And I asked her for some pills she can give me. I was like, can you just give me something that'll kind of help me come off all this stuff I'm taking? I can't stop drinking. I can't stop taking all these other substances. And thankfully she didn't. She called a treatment center for me, and I ended up going there to talk with them, and I ended up signing up for their outpatient program. That was God working in my life 100%, because I didn't know anything about treatment. I didn't trust it. Didn't know anything about sobriety. And I went to the first day of group, the outpatient program. It was a Wednesday. That was June 18th of 2008. And they gave me a blue book that said Alcoholics Anonymous on it. Kind of heard of AA before and didn't know much about it at all. And the steps and the traditions were on the walls. And I remember looking at the steps. And I remember being surprised. I've heard the 12 steps before, but I don't know what I thought. I guess I thought they were more like statements, like step 1, don't drink. Step 2, I don't know. And I remember being kind of intrigued that there were sentences, like full statements, And when group started, everybody went around the room and said their name and sobriety date. And everybody in there had, 10, 20, 30 days sober, which was impressive to me because I couldn't do that. I couldn't go one day without putting something in me. And then the two people that led the group, I was a man and a woman, and the lady said, my name is Kiarni, and today I make a commitment to help somebody. So she said that instead of giving us a sobriety date. And I remember rolling my eyes mentally to that and thinking dude, what is this place? I've been to these things before. I've been to the counselor, a psychiatrist, the priest at the church I grew up at, and nothing can help me. And then the guy next to her, he said, my name is Bob. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date's November 26, 1989, and I don't want another one. And man, like I didn't realize it at the time. Like I felt it, but really what had happened was, Bob got my attention immediately. And looking back, I just related to him. And I didn't think I was an alcoholic intellectually, but it was like intuitively, I knew it. And Bob at the time had 18 and a half years, and he had a deep voice, and he was dressed sharp, and I just noticed him. He was probably about 60, and he was a member of AA, and when he spoke, that identification, man, is very strong. I never was identified like that before, or heard someone talk about the things I did or felt the way I felt, but they were sober, and I knew Bob knew what he was talking about. And man, I heard it say, when the student is ready, God will provide the teacher. And that was my experience with Bob. And in the outpatient program, you had to go to a meeting every night, and you had to get a sponsor. So I started going to AA meetings. Still didn't think I was an alcoholic, but they said, don't worry about that. Just go. You can go to NA or AA, it doesn't matter. And I remember thinking, like, man, because I could tell the people in AA had something much better going on than what I had. And there was a solution here, And I remember thinking, I wish I was an alcoholic, because they got a pretty good program going on. I thought, I'm in treatment because I take too many of these like prescription medication pills, these pain pills, and once I kick that, I guess I don't know what I thought, but and thank God for that treatment center. And that's I think we all get here how we get here, right? God directs, because I don't know. I don't know if I ever would have came to an AA meeting on my own. And they said, just don't compare but identify. And I started to catch alcoholism. And we read it in the big book every morning, and I just related to it. I didn't know what we were reading, but it just spoke right to me. We used to read chapter 3 every morning, or the third step, talking about selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. We step on the toes of our fellows. They retaliate seemingly without provocation, but we find we've made decisions based on self that later put us in a position to be hurt. And that gave me some hope, because I started to see, man, things are not going well. So this is telling me if I'm the cause of this, wow, maybe if I do something different, I'll get a different result. And I had the gift of desperation, and I just bought in. I got a sponsor. I started working the steps, and things started to change. And I remember being, blown away by that, because nothing around me had changed, like my circumstances or like that. But I felt different. And I remember Bob saying to me, he goes, in his deep voice, he goes, "That's God doing for you what you can't do for yourself." Did a fourth and a fifth step. I was in Louisville, so that's where I got sober. I went back home to Ohio that Thanksgiving and started making some amends. And I had started the amends process, but did some big ones when I went back home. And things just started to change in my life. Then outside stuff started to change. The wrestling company, which looked like my career there was over, and they basically said, like, you'll never work here again. When I was about 3 months sober, I had an opportunity to meet with them, and I just couldn't believe how receptive they were to me. They didn't know anything I was doing. I didn't mention anything about being sober or anything like that. And I remember talking to my sponsor at the time about that. And he said, people can see something in us. They might not be able to put their finger on it, but they could tell, something good, that there's something going on with you. But again, God had directed, and as He does. And I got rehired, which I could not believe. So anyway, that brought me down to I needed to come to Florida because of that. So when I got rehired at the wrestling company, their training facility was now in Tampa. That's what brought me to Tampa. So with about 6 months sober, I moved to Tampa. But I had already known, I had enough AA in me to know that as soon as I get down here, I need to get connected in Tampa AA. And that's what I did. And that's how I got connected with Roger Hightower, who has since moved on to the big meeting in the sky, as we say. And Roger was in Louisville for about 17 years and moved down here about a year prior than me coming here. And man, everybody, when I say everybody back in Louisville said get a hold of Roger Hightower, I literally mean everybody. I asked, and I was like, man, who is this guy? Is he like the president? Because I'm like newer. So I came down here, met Raj, got connected, and that was, I saw career is important and all that. And I was so grateful to be back with the wrestling company. But I now saw and I knew sobriety had to be number one. And I had great sponsorship and great people around me to always lead by example with that. And because things are going to happen right when we're sober. And at about 2 years sober, I was at Yana over in Tampa where I live, and got a call from a 203 number. And I'm like, oh, that's the WWE's office. That's Connecticut, 203. And I was like, wait, why are they calling me on a Friday? I was like, oh, that's usually never good. And so when I called them back after the meeting, they were letting me know they're releasing me from my contract. Same guy does all the hiring and firing. And but man, he couldn't stop saying nice things about me. And that's the nature of the business, especially back then. It's a revolving door. Probably could have went back if I wanted. But it was a big shift for me at that time. And this is through AA and where God has, how he molds us. I knew I was going to be done with that part of my life. So shut the door on that. Super happy to do that. That's been a big blessing in my life. Being able to walk away from an athletic career like that, because I still know a lot of guys today that struggle with that. And became a school teacher. Because that's the next logical thing you would do. From pro wrestling to elementary school teacher. But what's funny, it just looks funny on paper. People still bring that up. And they say, how'd you do that? And it's through God's grace and having a sponsor and working these steps. That degree I thought I would never use, that my parents said I needed to get. I was able to use that to get my foot in the door as a school teacher. And I arrived at that, again, just through inventory, prayer, and it just all worked out. It all lined up. Because on paper, I shouldn't have been able to get that job the way I did. You need there's state licensing and all that, and through the process I was able to get that worked out. It's incredible the things we get to do when we're sober. Was a stay-at-home dad. I met my wife in AA, and we tried to have a baby for a few years, and my sponsor would always remind me, man, he says, it's got to happen on God's time. And it did. We had a son, and then I became the stay-at-home dad for a couple of years, and something like that. I was talking to a sponsee yesterday, and he called me because we're going to go through step 2, and I said, let me call you back. I'm putting Otis to bed. And so I did. I called him back once our son's Otis, once he was asleep, and he said, man, he goes, I could never do that. And I said, man, if you would be. Yes, you would. If you were a father and you're sober and you're showing up and doing what you're supposed to do, we surprise ourselves with what we're able to do. And that's been my experience these last 16 and a half years. Through all things, when trouble comes and things show up in our lives, I'm able to walk through these things. When Roger passed away last March, it was. I used to worry about that sometimes. I think, man, what's going to happen when I don't have Roger around? And at some point, I just, surrendered that. But very important guy in my life, of course. We all have our people. But when he passed away, because I had seen you guys walk through stuff, and I know when I stay close to God and I put AA first, we can walk through things. Going through some stuff now, some marital things that are not fun. Didn't ask for it, didn't want it. But what I'm amazed about is it's okay. My sponsor now, from the beginning, said, you're going to be all right. And I believed it, but I didn't kind of believe it. But seeing that now, that I'm okay. Because of what this program offers in God's grace. And that goes with all, because it just seemed like for a lot of years, I remember when I turned 40, I was 12 years sober, and I was like, man, I had a good decade. That's what I said, because I did. Relative peacetime. And then things shook up a little bit. But I used to think, man, I hope I'd have the grace or be able to walk through these things like I see these people doing. And I have been able to, again, because of this program and because of God and taking directions. That's pretty incredible. Not only, walk through stuff, but have some peace with it, some joy, opportunity to help others, excited about what's ahead, and to feel feelings, I was never able to do that. I couldn't feel it. I had to drink over it. I can't deal with this. And we have tools today that we can use. And I've learned to feel stuff and realize this will pass. This doesn't define me, or this isn't, the truth. Feelings pass. And so I'm super grateful. And that's why I really am grateful for the stuff that we go through. Roger would always say that, man. That's how God molds us, man. He knocks off those rough edges. And that's how I can also see how that's where we either change, all about change, like I mentioned at the top of the talk, because we either grow or we go. Like I've heard that saying, and I can definitely see that. Because I get off, I get off the beam pretty quick, and I get in pain pretty quick if I'm, not walking, doing what I'm supposed to do. And I want to be happy, joyous, and free today, just do what's offered here. And the AA is the most important thing in my life. The other things that just been able to do sober. Like, I'm in graduate school to be a therapist, and again, that was just something that the 11th step for me. And we always are learning more. And it's knowledge of God's will for me and the power to carry that out. Usually, what that looks like is I get an idea, and not based on fear or lack or anything like that. There'll just be this thought, or this desire to go in a certain direction. It's like, that's interesting, and I'll talk to my sponsor about it, maybe inventory about it, and then when I take the action, it just unfolds and just happens. That's how I got into graduate school, with not knowing exactly what I wanted to do, to getting the degree that I know I wanted to get at the university that I wanted to go to, and it's just been incredible with being able to work full time, be in graduate school full time, have a son, show up for AA, do the other things that are good for my mental health, like working out and all that, and it's all through the grace of God. I guess I wish I could take credit for it, but it's God working through my life, and I learned that here. So I'm extremely grateful for that. One big thing that I've always observed, and I've seen it, and I think we've all seen it, is the illusion, and I've fallen into this, but I don't stay there. I get out of it quickly. The illusion is, man, I have a lot of stuff going on. Because I'm sober, and through the grace of God, I've now been restored to somebody who's fully self-supporting. So I don't need AA quite as much anymore. That can seem like a really real thing. And just from my own experience, I know when I put God and Alcoholics Anonymous first, everything works out. And it's in big things and little things. If I ever don't go to a meeting, that's just my rule of thumb. If I can go, I go. Can't always get there because of other legit responsibilities. For the most part, though, it's with some effort, it can happen. Anytime I've missed a meeting, for no reason, by the time I'm going to do this other thing, like 10 o'clock rolls around, I thought, oh, damn, I didn't get anything done. I could have went to the meeting. I know it's good for me. So anyway, I love AA. It's everything in my life is a result of Alcoholics Anonymous. My sponsor now tells me he gets better. I believe him. So I want to stick around, hang around for that. So thanks for letting me share.